Welcome back to my channel, y'all, and today is the best chicken biscuits from scratch. And one moment of silence for this honey butter, y'all, because oof, look at that. These biscuits are so fluffy and tender, and let's just get into it. So I am starting out with 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, almost a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 tablespoon of sugar. Next, I have half a cup of lard, and I've cut it into cubes, and then 3 tablespoons of cold butter, and I actually put this into the refrigerator. Okay, 1 cup of buttermilk, and then just another little small portion, a couple of tablespoons of buttermilk that we're going to use later. But highly recommend using lard. You can always substitute it with butter or shortening, but the lard just gives it that extra fluffiness and southern taste. So also I'm going to be using a pastry cutter, which when working with biscuits or a pie crust, highly recommend using, but you can always use a fork or your hands. But right now I am just going to sift out the remainder of my dry ingredients. And so as usual, when I'm making recipes, I double this recipe because why? This particular recipe goes in what section? The freezes beautifully section. So double your recipe and make sure you put some aside for another day when you just want to throw some biscuits in a microwave, wrap it up in a paper towel, and you're good to go. Tastes just as fresh as day one. So I am just going to mix in all of the dry ingredients here. Make sure it's incorporated very well. Also, don't forget to preheat your oven to 425. So now I am adding in my shortening, well actually the lard and the butter, and you have to move fast with this recipe because you want your shortening and your butter mixture to remain cold, and you are just going to use your pastry cutter and just crush it out. So you're just getting rid of the larger chunks, and you're just looking for a consistent texture with just small little beads, and those small little beads of the butter and the lard are going to make the biscuits tender. So this is pretty much what it looks like. So no major chunks. There are still going to be some remaining chunks, but just a consistent texture across your flour mixture. Okay. So now I am just adding in the buttermilk, and we'll blend that all together. And this is going to be a sticky dough, okay? So unlike when we did the tortillas, this dough is going to be very sticky. Now I am going to use my free tools, my hands. So now I am just dumping out the mixture here on a clean surface. Very sticky dough. Once again, I cannot stress that enough, but a sticky dough is going to present a very tender biscuit. So just go ahead and work the dough with your hands. It's a little messy, but that's what soap and water is for. So again, I am just working the dough, and all I want to do is incorporate any bits of dry flour and pick up all the little sticky pieces, and then form it into a sticky ball. So do not feel tempted to add any flour, okay? You have to work with this dough as is because you don't want to dry it out. So now I am just putting it in the ball. Gonna go wash my hands and clean my surface. So I've added some flour to the surface because I'm ready to roll it out. And you're just gonna roll it out to about 1/2 inch. And also, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. For those of you who already have, thank you so much for the support. So after you've rolled out your dough to 1/2 inch, I fold it over, and then I'm going to roll it back out again into about 1/2 inch. And so by rolling and folding method, you are creating those layers in your biscuit. And so definitely recommend doing this, but you don't have to. But I like to do it at least 3 times, okay? Because I like a flaky biscuit with layers, and again, each layer is so tender and it's so delicious. So I just go for what I know. Now I have a cookie sheet covered in parchment paper, and I am just using a stemless wine glass. No fancy cutters or anything, but do not twist. When you're using biscuit dough, you just want to firm press and lift. If you twist when cutting biscuit dough, it's going to seal the edges and they're going to remain flat. And you want, again, a fluffy biscuit that rises when baking, not 9 hockey pucks, okay? So press, firm, lift. Press, firm, lift. And then you will also notice that I am trying to get as close as possible to the other biscuits that I've cut out, so that I can get as many biscuits cut out of this round of dough as possible. Look at how tender that dough is. So here I am just placing them side by side on the cookie sheet. And so it is important, this is a tip, put your biscuits next to each other, because while they're baking, they're going to rise. And by putting them side by side, this presents a support system, if you will, and they'll help each other lift together. Okay? So again, this recipe, no dough left behind. And I'm just gonna roll it out and keep cutting biscuits until I don't have any more dough. And also, you guys, when you're doing these types of recipes, this falls under that category of freezes beautifully. So I did double my recipe, and I ended up with about 20 biscuits total. But once you've cooked them, you can throw them in the freezer and they're just fine for about 3 months. So there you go, look at that. It's beautiful biscuits. And so now I'm just going to use that leftover buttermilk, and I'm going to brush the tops. Now you can use butter or an egg wash. An egg wash presents kind of a crispy top, and that's not what you want for a tender flaky biscuit. But your buttermilk, it just has just a little bit of a crust and it makes it golden. You don't want it dark brown, so I don't use butter either. This is just what works best for me. So again, go for what you know, whatever your preference is, but do not put too much, okay? So those went into the oven at 425, and they'll bake for about 14 minutes. So I'm going to start on my chicken, and I'm using 2 boneless, skinless chicken breasts. So I'm just going to cut off this little weird piece here. I don't know what that is, but just trim off the little pieces, and then I am going to butterfly. So how I butterfly is I take the thicker part of the chicken breast, and then I will start to cut and guide it with my hand. So I do a flat palm and then guide the knife through the rest of the fillet. So there you can see it's now filleted both sides, and then I'm just going to cut them in half. And again, these are the chicken pieces that I'm going to make to go into our chicken biscuits, and they're going to be so delicious. So again, just start at the thicker part of the breast, and then use your hand to guide the knife through the remainder of the breast. So, and be careful if you're not comfortable with this, that's okay. You can just pound it out, which I will still do, because when you're cooking with breasts, you want it to be tender. And so, yeah, I prefer to fillet because I just don't necessarily want a thick piece of chicken in a biscuit, but you know, it's all about preference here. So now I am just adding a couple of pieces to a Ziploc, and this is my go-to when I'm tenderizing chicken breast is I'll throw them in a Ziploc. I do not close it up. You don't want to create a big bubble and a mess, but just lay them flat, and then I'll use the flat and smooth surface of my mallet, and then I'll just pound it out. Now, again, don't go too hard or don't use the groove side, because I don't know my own strength, and you don't want to have a pulverized piece of chicken that looks weird. Okay, we like pretty food. Okay. All right, so this is about the thickness that you would like for your chicken breast. And so I'm just gonna add about a teaspoon of salt, and then I will add in some buttermilk, and I added just a little bit of milk as well, and just cover that up, okay? And instead of touching my chicken, I should have did my pepper first. That was very smart, Nika, but it's okay. Ground pepper is a must in this recipe. So I'm just gonna take my gloves off and then go ahead and grind out my black pepper and add it to my mixture, but super basic seasoning here, just salt and pepper. Right. So just set that aside while you prep your seasoned flour mixture. But the biscuits are done, and look at that. Can y'all smell that? These biscuits turned out so perfect, and if you could smell my kitchen, so good. All right, so here is the honey butter. So I am using my little honey bear, and pretty much the 1-to-1 ratio. So 3 tablespoons of butter to about 3 tablespoons of honey. And here's a tip for you. If your little honey bear is being greedy and won't let the honey go, just pop it in the microwave, the entire bottle in the microwave for about 15 seconds, and the liquid gold will flow. Trust me. Okay, so just adding that in and mixing it together, and it is just as simple as that. Okay, honey, butter in 5 seconds. So good. All right, so now I am just gonna brush the tops of these warm biscuits. Look at that, y'all. Do y'all smell that? That is so good. Oh, honey butter over flaky biscuits. It is so good. That was a good day. All right, so just set these aside and we'll use them later when we get ready to assemble our sandwiches. But look at that, y'all. Golden, so good. All right, so we're gonna season our flour. I use the paper bag method when making fried chicken. So I just have 2 cups of all-purpose flour in a bag, and then I have a teaspoon of paprika, and then to that I am going to add my little spice blend. So just a little all-purpose seasoning, that roasted garlic seasoning I love, and then some onion powder. So super simple and easy, and just toss that into the flour along with some fresh ground pepper, of course. And again, it's all about preference or taste. You can adjust, but kind of just throw 1 teaspoon of each across the board. So just shake it up a little bit to make sure all the little seasonings are sifted throughout the flour mixture. And then I'm also going to add just a couple of drizzles of some buttermilk that I had left over from brushing the biscuits. And by dropping this into your flour, it creates those little crunchy bits when you go to fry your chicken. And so recommend doing this method, and you can use milk or water, what have you, but extra crunchy fried chicken is a must. So now I am just going to, one at a time, take the chicken breast and just shake off the excess milk, and then I'm going to toss it in there. So I normally use a larger grocery bag, but with everything going on, I'm using the smaller bag, and so it'll take me a little bit longer, but I'm just tossing it up in the flour. And then what I'm doing, and you can't see, is squeezing the flour into the chicken. Okay, so you want to make sure the flour gets into each of the nooks and crannies and the crevices of the chicken breast. So again, just toss it into the seasoned flour, shake it up, and then you're going to squeeze the flour into the pieces of the chicken. And then you're setting off to the side on your tray, because as it's setting, the flour is absorbing, which is creating a crust, which locks in that moisture, which creates a tender, juicy chicken. Okay, so using breast can be dry, but when you pound out your chicken and you use this method, your chicken is going to be tender and juicy. Trust me, it is so delicious. So here you have your chicken. Set it aside until you get ready to fry. Now you want to make sure your oil is ready. I just toss water in there, which is very smart, I know, but that's my method. And then you're just going to add your chicken pieces. Do not overcrowd your skillet. And I know it looks like I put too much in there, but these are going to shrink up. So just do a couple of pieces at a time and then fry on each side. I would say about 6 or 7 minutes per side. And again, these are chicken breasts, but remember, we slice them up and then tenderize them, so they won't take as long to cook as a traditional chicken breast. So once you're done, you should have some golden, tender, and juicy. Look at that, y'all. This in itself is so delicious, but put this with those tender, flaky, look at that biscuit, y'all. See those layers, and look at that. Hot, tender biscuits. Come on, y'all. So just gonna, again, add one of those tender pieces of chicken, and here's the shot. Look at that. That honey butter drizzling over that chicken, coupled with that tender biscuit. This is a winner. I hope you guys try it out, and thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to click that subscribe button, as well as like this video, and then also hit that notification bell so that you'll get notified the next time I post my new video. For those of you who are new to my channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. And I thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.